Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing great. Today we have lots of things to cover. Hopefully, 4 hours that we estimated would be suffice. And I can let you go sharp at 12:20. The very first thing that we are going to talk is operator overloading. And the reality is we are not 100% sure that we can define all the needed actions for operators like, for instance, plus. Imagine that you have two integer numbers, 5 plus 2. You know how to deal with that. What if it is 5.1 plus 2.3, 2 decimal points? You know that. How about 5.1 plus 2? Again, you know that. Or Reza plus debug, concatenating. But what if you want to add two complex numbers that they have imaginary part and real part? We don't have such a thing. We have to define it ourselves, right? So one of the thing is defining add function, for example. Something like, I don't know, static int or a static what? The name of a class. Complex. Then you're going to return a complex object. But then you cannot use plus simply for such cases. We are going to understand what is operator overloading and how we can utilize it in such cases and scenarios. So let's start. Before anything, let's first watch this video quickly together.
Overloading, that is operator overloading. As in the operator overloading, we will define a particular operator, maybe any arithmetic or comparison operator, for our own defined data types such as classes. So let's take an example that I have created a class called length and I want to compare two length objects, whether which one is greater, or I want to find the difference between two lengths, or I want to add the two lengths. So in these requirements, what I have to do? I will have to use the predefined operators like less than, greater than, or plus minus. But these operators doesn't know like how to work with these user defined data types. So we will have to tell them in the concept of operator overloading. Let's do it practically. In this example, I have created a user-defined data type called length, inside which I have a couple of data members called feet and inch. And two constructor for initializing them. One is the default constructor, which will initialize them with 0. And second one is the parameterized constructor, in which you can initialize with whatever you will be passing at the time of initializing of a class or instantiating of a class. And in the main method, you can see I have taken two objects like called len1, len2, in which I have assigned 2 feet 8 inches, 4 feet 5 inches, and a couple of console.writeLine, which will print the output. So let's execute it now. And you can see everything is going good. So let's start doing some operations like, for example, if I want to add these two lengths, so what I'll do, I will say add len3 is equal to len1 plus len2. Since when we add two integers, we get an integer now.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. If we see that one approach doesn't work, and we insist working on the approach that doesn't work, we have to give up one day and just follow the approach that is going to give us different results.
We get strings in the output. Similarly, when you will add two lengths, you will get a length in the output. So I'm assigning it to length3, which is of length type. And you can see, like here, I'm getting an error. If I put the mouse over it, you can see like operator plus cannot be applied to operands of type length and length. Since length is a user-defined data type and plus is a predefined operator, and plus operator is not programmed ever for this length type of data. So That is why for our own custom user-defined classes, we'll have to.
So look at this, we have two parts, one is feet and the other one is inch. There's a kind of problem. If you add inches together, if exceeded from number 12, what should we do? We should say minus 12 for that one. For instance, if it is 5 plus 11, it's going to be 16. So you're gonna take that 12 out of it, and the remainder is gonna be 4. So you keep 4 and add 1 into feet. Does that make sense? So we don't have such a thing to add these measurements. We need to create it. So look at this one.
Operators by our own, and that is what we call the operator overloading. So right here inside, what I'll do the definition of the plus operator for this length data type. As you can see in this definition, I'm defining the operator plus, which will be applied on the couple of operand both of type length, and in the result it will return the length type as well. I have make it static because this operator is getting defined for a particular class called length, not for a particular instance only. So it has to be static and it is public so that you can use it even outside the class and outside this project as well. We will discuss these access modifier in our later videos, but now let's focus on the definition. Like here you can see, it's a very straightforward code. I have taken another object called L3. I will add both the feet, will assign it to feet. I will add both the inches and will assign to inches. As here you can see, if the inches is greater than 12, I will make it increment in the feet and I will decrease the inches by 12. And finally, when the addition of two lengths is done, I will return this resultant object called L3, and that will be assigned to this length 3. So when I will print this total, and I will do it like length 3 dot get length, and let me execute. And here you can see its total length 7 feet 1 inch. That is the total of these two lengths. So this is how you can define any operator for doing this task. But when it's about the comparison operator, make sure you are defining the matching operators as well. Like now, as you can see here, like I have defined the operator greater than. This greater than will also compare to length L1 and L2, and in the resulting it will return a boolean. So if L1 is greater, I will return a true, otherwise a false. So you can see even the feet is greater, it's true. If length inch is greater, it's true. Otherwise, I will return false. But if I say len1 is greater than len2, that also means that len2 is smaller than len1. So while defining this greater than, I also have to define its complementary operator, that is less than operator. And you can see the definition is quite similar. I just replace this greater than with the smaller than operator, and the logic is quite same. So now let me put a code here in the main method, like if len1 is greater than len2. So it's a simple code. If len1 is greater than len2, then len1 is greater, else len.
How was it, guys?
Welcome to tutorial 1.
50,
In this
just 50%. If you got the concept, that's enough for the next part. Just get the concept, right? And remember, the thing is maybe hard to remember, and that is using public static. You see that, for instance, here it says that length operator, and then you have plus sign. Remember it like this: public static something operator operator. Right? Public static something operator operator. Why I'm saying that, guys, you don't need to memorize everything. But I've seen some people, they try to, in midterm or in the exams, they try to learn. Guys, that's the time that you have to, it's like a battle. You're not going to start learning how to work with gun. You have to use your gun, right? And that's the time that you're not going to be just relax and just, okay, now let's just watch one YouTube video to see what is. I have seen people watch YouTube videos in the midterm exams, like seriously. Okay, so let's go to the next part together. That's the first thing. This one is super extensive explanation.
This video, you are going to learn how to use operator overloading in C#. It sounds quite fancy, but it's actually quite simple. So let's get started. All right, so first,
Just one thing. Did I start recording? Yes. My apologies.
and well, let's say we have two numbers, A equals 5 and B equals 3, defined as ints. If we want to add these two numbers, we can do something like this. Int C is A plus B. But what if we have two objects of type ticket, where each ticket has a duration and ID properties, and maybe other properties like creation date, etc. Naturally, we can't just add two tickets using the plus operator, because the compiler won't know how to add these two tickets exactly. Do we want to add the time of the creation? Do we need to create a new ID for the third ticket object? In our case, when we add two ticket objects, we want to have a third ticket object with its duration equaling ticket 1 duration plus ticket 2 duration. This is where operator overloading comes in handy. So operator overloading is the overloading of the built-in operators in C#. It is the same overloading concepts that we are familiar with, but applied to operators instead. Operator overloading will allow us to use the C# operators with our own classes and structs. So the syntax to overload an operator will look like this. Since we will most likely use the overload from outside our class, we will start by using public static. This is because the operator methods are class methods and not object methods. Then we define the return type followed by the operator keyword. And then we need to specify the operator we are overloading, for example, plus, minus, and finally the parameters of the operator.
If somebody asks you, that's a classical answer that it's not going to bring us very to a very accurate understanding. They say why you use a static in definition of that. Tell. We can access it directly, but why not? Okay, why not using public class? What was the problem of just using it public class name?
We have to access it through the object related to the.
The problem is in that case, you have to use the object dot. So where's the dot here? You have plus sign. We don't have any place for having dots. So the only way that you can just, define it is what? You know what I'm saying? Why long? Imagine that you have one object and imagine it is at ADD and it's not plus sign. Then you have that object dot and it shows you the method, right? Here we don't have such a thing. We want to use this object plus the other object. We don't have that linkage. It should be available whenever you want to use it, not based on the object of the class, but based on the class. Does that make sense? Okay.
Called car with a property called speed. Then we can overload the arithmetic operator plus using the following code: public static car operator plus. We started with public static, then the return type, which is in this case a car, then the plus operator followed by two car parameters, which we are trying to add together. Now, our operator logic is going to be as follows. First, we will create a new car object called car sum, and then we will set its car speed to be the speed of car 1 as well as car 2. combined. So car 1 plus car 2's speed. And finally, we will return it. As you can see, it's very simple. So let's try it out in Visual Studio. Therefore, let's go ahead and create a new class. This class ticket should have two properties, one being the duration of the ticket and the other one, the creation date. So when was it created? And this is going to be a date time. And then we have a simple constructor, which will take in the duration in hours of whatever is passed to it, and then we'll create it.
Very simple. Imagine that you want to define a mechanism saying issuing the ticket for any task. Imagine that you're an IT manager or IT responsible person. You want to issue a ticket for any task that happens, and you have one estimation of the time that it needs. For instance, you're going to say 2 means 2 hours or 2 units that you want to dedicate for that task. Does that make sense? And the time that you want to issue the ticket would be now, because you receive an email and there's something happening in the system, you receive a call, you want to issue a ticket, right? Immediately, you are going to just say public ticket, the duration that you estimate, and the issue time would be date time that's now. Does that make sense? At the end, you want to understand that how many tasks you have on your desk. For instance, you have 5 units for this one, 2 units for that one, and you want to add them up. Does that make sense? So you have 5 tasks, you want to add the duration of the tasks. Look at this.
Time now, so the current time, so to speak. Now let's go over to the main method. In the main method, what we want to do is we want to first of all create 2 tickets. Okay, one is going to have a duration of 2, and the other one will have a duration of 3. So first ticket 2, second ticket 3. And we want to now add the 2 tickets, creating a third ticket object. So let's call this one sum ticket. So the sum ticket should take the first ticket plus the second ticket. So you can see that we already get an error here. And let me fix that as well here. So we get an error that will say that the plus operator cannot be applied to operands of type ticket and ticket. And as we discussed, there is no way for the compiler to know how to add 2 tickets together. This is why we need to provide our own logic by overloading the plus operator. So let's do that. In our case, we want to add the duration of our tickets, and we want to have a new creation time because it's a new ticket. So let's go back to our ticket class and take care of that. Therefore, I'm going to use, as stated earlier, public static, and then the type that I want to return, which will be ticket, then the operator keyword, and the operator itself that I want to use. So I want to override the plus keyword. And what I'm going to say is I want to use ticket A and ticket B. And now let's say what we want to return. Well, we want to return a ticket, right? So we need to return a new ticket. And here, that's where we add the logic. So here, I'm going to say the duration hours plus the duration hours of B. So here, the A duration hours plus the B duration hours, in hours, so to speak. Quick pause. In the logic. So if we now go back to our program CS, our main method, we can see that the problem disappeared, the error disappeared. So now it just says first ticket plus second ticket, and that works out because some ticket is just going to create a new ticket with the duration in hours of those tickets combined. So now let's just use that in order to write it onto the console as well, because otherwise, well, there wouldn't be anything to see for us. So here, display the sum ticket duration in hours, the total duration in hours is, plus the sum ticket of the duration in hours. So here I want to see how long the sum ticket is going to be, because we never defined how many hours the sum ticket should have, well, the duration in hours or in time. So let's run this real quick. And we'll see the total duration in hours is 5. So we have too many here as it seems. But overall, we see that this is how we can override what should happen if we are using certain operators. So in this,
Okay. look at this one. The next thing is, actually, I have provided some videos for you. Watch them at your convenience. The next thing is talking about the concept of overriding when we have hierarchy of the classes. This is the essential part of object-oriented, which we call them inheritance. So today we are gonna start that, but intentionally, I put it there for you. When you review it, you just get a little bit ahead of time, see the concept, and then when we teach it, then you are gonna just understand thoroughly. The next thing is, this is a useful website, and I'm gonna share that with you. Guys, please spend a few seconds with your team members. It's in Telegram. Try to discuss and see how much you can understand from this one. Okay, to the interest of time, I have already copied the code, a little bit modified. You can just bring it to your Visual Studio, please. Okay, can I have your attention? The best place to start is always going to the class, not to the main. So let's go to the class. We define a class called box. It has 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. Breadth similar. So there is one method over there, which is going to return double. And in that method, we say, okay, get the volume by multiplying the 3 dimensions that we passed to it. The other one is set length, set breadth, and then set height. I know that almost all of you have critiques about this type of defining. Hey, what the heck? We are living in the object-oriented world, right? So for such cases, we have to use simply setter getter. Anyway, apart from it, public static, something operator, you see that? And that something here is what? Is box, because we create a class, which the texture is class, based on class box. You say that let's create a new box over there, temporary object. Whatever you add, like B and C, it's going to add the length, breadth, and height of those two objects and return that created box. Does that make sense? What? Awesome. And if we get there, you see, first we create 3 boxes, and then the volume by default is 0. And then we are gonna set the length for all these for box 1, then set the breadths and set the height, and we do exactly the same thing for box 2 as well. Then you say, show me the volume of this one, box 1, then you say volume of box 2, then you're gonna use whatever you have written for the overload, right? You add the dimension of 2 boxes together, and this is the time to show the volume of the new created. Let's see what's gonna happen. There will be 3 different values. The first one for box 1, box 2, and the summation of those 2 boxes. Does that make sense? Okay. By saying that, we already finished this one. I want you, please, again, with your friends, guys, go through this. And see how far you can understand from this website. Especially, there's one part defining the code. So we have real numbers and we have complex numbers. Complex numbers has 2 parts, imaginary part and the real part. Please read and explain it to your neighbors. Thank you. Okay, guys, can I have your attention, everybody? Let's just understand what is it about. It's about complex numbers. Guys, if you don't know complex numbers, it's not a big deal. Complex numbers has 2 parts, like a kind of duo. One part is the real part, the numbers that we understand, like 5, 2, 3, and so on. And the other part is the imaginary part, which we don't have it in real world. Like what? Guys, which number is going to multiply itself and creates -1? We don't have it in real words, so we call it imaginary, right? So that is why we show them with I. So 5i means 5 times radical and the square root of -1, right? So in that case, if you go to the class complex, it shows 2 integer and imaginary part. And we have, that's a beautiful constructor. I very much like the style. It says that let's have a complex number, and if you do not have that specific part, for instance, the real part passes 0 for it. If you don't have the imaginary part, pass 0 for it. Does that make sense? So that's a kind of default value for the constructor. And then we say that let's define a method, and that method is what? Is add fastest, which we are going to do this. We say, imagine that we have complex number 1, complex number 2, and I'm going to temporarily create something called temp, and I'm going to add the real part of 2 numbers and the imaginary part of 2 numbers. And then I'm going to return that one. Does that make sense? But the problem is, I use a simple method. Oh, that's not a problem, old-fashioned way. And if I say display a real and imaginary part of any number, right? It's gonna just show us that nicely and neatly, the way that you see it. Let's just see, what does it do? Imagine that the first number is 3 plus I7. The second number is 5 plus I2. Then if you add these 2 numbers together, it's going to be what? 9 for the imaginary part and 5 plus 3, 8 for the real part. Does that make sense? Okay, you have the code, guys, and spend 2 minutes and tell me who can solve my issue. I couldn't change it to overriding operator. So please work on it. And whoever could finish, please raise your hand. Send the code to my private Telegram. Yes, I'm checking. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wella. Manav, thank you. Rishi, merci. Andy, thank you. Saram, thanks. Arjun. Anjan. Bravo. Yes, Weber. Pistis. Irene. Okay, guys, let's go to an Nida. Okay, Jainam. And Khan. Okay, though. Look at the next part. Please help me. I didn't have time to check those who left behind, especially the target is that. I didn't have time to check what you did, so help me if I'm doing this correctly. So I said operator, right? So if I say operator and plus, and then I'm done, right? Oh, what else? Lovely. So here I have to say what?
C1 plus C2.
Okay, C1 and then plus C2. Right? As simple as that. So technically for overriding an operator, you need to define something like add, subtract, or something, and just simply convert it to the operator override. By saying that, guys, I think that 100% we are on top of the topic. It says that example of adding two numbers, we just converted. You're going to have all these code. The next thing is going to the, and that is quite a nice example. Let me just quickly bring you to the slide. Let's start talking about the objectives, a shortcoming in basic operations like operators. We don't have all the possible functionalities that we expect to have from, for instance, plus, multiply, and so on. Operator overloading, how to implement that, and summary. So, guys, again, public, static, something, operator. And then I want you to spend time, slide number 5, 6, and 7. I didn't get, and also 8, and also 9. All these slides, they didn't make sense, and I couldn't make them work. Your task is make it work, engineers, please. The slide number 5, all the way to the end. Okay, I didn't solve the problem because I couldn't. But you already have the combination of all the code. For those who left behind, now you have the problem consolidated. Work on that. Okay, can I have your attention for a sec? Maybe it can help you and you can just say start working on it. Look at this one. Here in the main part, we define two objects, T1 and T2, which they contain hour, minute, and seconds. But look at this one. Here in the class time, we said whenever you get anything like time that contains just one number, you have to do it what? Place that number, which is the overall number of seconds, for example. Place it inside what? Ticks field that we have over there. Does that make sense? For instance, if I pass 3,600, what should be the value inside here? 3 3,600 ticks. But look at this one, and that's the beautiful part of it. We don't need to have any set for any of these properties. We have that 3,600. We say that, okay, what is the remainder for the second if you divide it by 60? Tell me. 0, correct? So I don't have any second, it's going to be 0 second. What if I divide it by 60, which is going to be 60, and the remainder of the division by 60, what is the result? Again, 0. So I'm not going to have any minute in that case. But get the 3,600 divided by 3,600, it's going to be 1. So it's 1 hour, which I'm going to get it over there. Does that make sense? So in that case, this guy works if you pass 3,600, for example, or 3,700, whatever. But the problem starts from the time that you pass something like this. So we need to have 2 different. Lovely. Do we have 2? No, we just have 1. And that's the time that you just passed that 3,600. So you need to create one constructor that gets the hour multiplied by 3,600 plus get the minute multiplied by 60 plus the second. Please complete it. Okay, so look at this one. This is the corrected version of the code. As I've told you, the other constructor that we are going to have contains hour, minute, and seconds. This is going to make it work. Intentionally, I have something that I said, okay, let's just uncomment it. Whenever you get such a thing, it's going to show you the number of ticks over there too. That's the first part. The second part is, how about plus sign? And also, this is one plus sign. This is another plus sign. And I want you to think for a second, what are the differences between these two? Imagine that you have 2 hours, 2 different minutes, 2 different seconds, and you need to just, is it kind of wise to add minute to minute, second to second, hour to hour? What is the best solution for that? Lovely. Convert everything to second, then add 2 seconds together. So what you're going to save would be just based on seconds. If you want to show it based on hours, minutes, and seconds, simply it's going to convert it using that get part. Guys, that's the beauty of object-oriented. You have everything in one place using seconds, and it's going to convert it to hours, minutes, and seconds. This is going to be something like this. If you have the ticks, imagine that you want to add 500 integer number to it. Imagine that you have everything in seconds. You can do that too, right? So it provides it. And what is this equal sign? If the number of ticks, seconds, in both is equal, then it's going to say that they are equal. If not, they're going to say not equal, right? Okay, let's try this one together. And intentionally, because I just uncommented the tick part, it shows that the first is going to be this number of ticks or seconds. The second one is this number of seconds, right? We show those two numbers, and the add part, you see that right line T1, right line T2. And then we say, okay, let's add them together. Simply, it's going to just. The next example that I have provided for you is getting a little bit more, means having three different numbers. Let's just. So in here, I said that that's the solution for that thing. But here, what do we have as extra part? Sorry, I copied the wrong thing. Here it is. Okay. In this one, intentionally, I just did one thing. I passed those two values and commented everything to be nice and neat, as you see. So it just added those two numbers and gives you the result. But the last one is using this operator equal sign. Look at this one. Here I say, first, let's have T99 and add T1, T2, and T3. The last one is 3,705, means 3,601 hour plus 100 more plus 5 seconds. What's it mean? Means 1 minute and 45 seconds. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay, awesome. So you're going to add all those numbers together and create T99. We show T1, T2, T3, and remember, the last one is what? The last one is based on ticks. You convert it to such a thing. And then T99 would be the summation of them. And I ask if T1 is equal to T2, which is not so, should return false, right? Let's look at the result. So it's going to be, as I expected, that one, 1 hour, 1 minute and 45 seconds. And if you sum them up, guys, I checked it precise, fine. And then is T1 equal to T2? No, I'm lazy. Let me just say if T1 is equal to T1, which is correct. So let's just see if it returns true, which is going to return true. Does that make sense? So now you have the whole code. I want you to spend 1-2 minutes with your team members. Try to understand it thoroughly, please. Thank you. Yes, please.
If we modify the operator equals, or if we don't modify the operator equals, and I define a new time which is exactly as T1, they're not the same, right? I mean, if I don't override the equal operator, and then I define a new time, T4 maybe, the value is exactly as T1. If I say T1 equal T4, they are not the same, right?
I don't think it's gonna work, yeah,
Okay.
because the equal sign for that object is not defined by default, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, can I have your attention, guys? The next thing, let me just save this one. The next thing that we are going to, I don't overwhelm you by reviewing the slides. We already covered everything and even corrected version of it. The next thing that we are going to discuss right after the break is gonna be a partial nested. And instead of overwhelming you with the slides, we are gonna jump into practice. What would be the partial, the definition, watching some videos, and so on and so forth. Okay, guys, it's almost 9:30. Let's have 5 minutes. And 9:35, we are gonna continue our journey. Thank you.
આઈડિયા તો આનો હતો ને આઈડિયા આનો હતો ને ઇન્ગ્રેડિયન્ટ पे નાખ્યા તમે મને મારો નામ કરાવી સિસ્ટમ આપણી હતી
Okay. So. We are gonna start in 1 minute. Is it only me who feel cold or it's cold in here? Yeah. Excuse me. Okay. So let's start together. As you see here, we have a new concept, and that concept is partial and nested. What is partial? Let me just tell you one thing. Imagine that in this group, Wailong is responsible to provide some methods in a class, and Lucan is responsible to define some other methods, and Iron is responsible for defining properties. That's the easy part, Iron. Okay, so, but they want to work together and combine it at the end, right? So 3 different people, they write 3 different segments of one class. So who is responsible to put them together? Compiler. Look at this example, everybody. Here is the file that I've copied here and copied for you as well. It is something that we have worked on a few seconds ago. I want you all run it once again, please. And see it works. It works, right? Okay. How about this? Do you see that class? I copy and paste it once again. Jainam, the first part contains real image and that constructor. I delete these 2 parts. Imagine that you are responsible for the first part. And imagine that Garb is responsible for the next part. So if I divide it like this, the first part apparently works, but the second part shows what? Error. So if you say partial here and you say partial here, then there is no squiggly line. And if you run it, it's going to work like Mercedes without any problem. Awesome. Okay, so everybody, please try this one. Split the the class into two parts, use partial and see if it works. Sorry, it doesn't work?
It was on 20 degrees, that's why it's.
Oh, 20.
Yeah.
So now it is 21.
I think
Wow.
26.
We feel tropical then. Okay, so guys, let's go to the next one. So that is the make it partial thing that I already told you. Let's watch this quick video together.
We've seen so far that we can create a class, but we cannot create a second class with the same name. So within one project, the class name needs to be unique. Let us go to Visual Studio and create two classes with the same name. So here write public class, hello class, and create another one with the same name. If we hover over the second one, we see that the namespace C# already has a class hello class. So we see that we cannot have two classes with the same name. However, at one point, Microsoft decided to change this with the introduction of something called partial classes. So this means that by using the partial classes, we can create two classes with the same name within the same namespace. And this way, two persons can work in the same class. So in our solution, let us change the public class to public partial class. And let us do the same for the second class as well. So now here we see that we can have two classes with the same name within the same namespace. Inside the first class, let us add the method hello world. So let me write here public void hello world. And this method will simply console the write line hello world. Let us go to the second class and create another method of type void and name this method hello universe. And we simply console the write line hello universe. Now let us go inside the main method and inside here create an object out of the hello class. So right here class hello is equal to new hello class. And then if we type in here hello, so we have reference to both. So hello world and hello universe. So let us execute this method. Change this to hello universe. Control F5 to see the result. So here we see that we have the results. But why would we use the partial classes instead of the standard classes? We use the partial classes because multiple developers can work at the same time with a single class in separate files. So at the same time with a single class in separate files. So for example, when you work with a designer, like the one in Visual Studio, for instance, the Windows Forms or WPF, where all the automatically generated designer code can be kept in one file, while your code is kept in another one.
Okay, so let's watch this quick video as well.
C# programming, when we are working with the classes in the same namespace, we cannot have the class of the same names. Here, we are going to discuss about partial class. Using a partial keyword, you can define the single class as the multiple bodies. By the time you will instantiate that particular class, it will give a combined instance of all the parts of the same class. So let's see how we can implement the partial class practically. Now here you can see I have created a couple of partial classes with the same name, of course. And if I will define anything inside it, like let's say public void and a method m1, and for this particular class, one more method m2. So as I said, just to enhance the readability and make your code even more clear, if your class are doing separate roles, you can simply split the code in the separate class definition. But overall, at the runtime, when you will instantiate this particular class, the instance will be a combined instance.
In the runtime, the compiler would take care of that. The intention is, guys, the whole topic is not that much complex. So Reza, why you provided two different videos? Guys, you see, from each video, we took just one simple single point, right? The first one said that we do it when we have multiple people engaging in one project. And the second one just said it's going to happen in runtime when compiler is going to merge them in one file.
That as well. So here inside this main method, I'm instantiating this my class. And when I'm saying m dot, you will find m1, m2 both inside this. That simply means even though you have something, even though you have given a different body for these classes, but instance is combined. So just to separate.
Okay, so after this, the thing is, we want to know about nested classes. Nested classes are not good practice. Try not to use nested classes. But what if we see that? How could we access the elements inside the nested classes? Right? That's the question and that's the problem. I want you please spend a few seconds with your team members, go through this link that I provide for you. Imagine that you want to self-study. You want to study by yourself. So please. Okay. Are you done? Look at this one. Here we define a class, the outer class car, and inside that outer class, we have another class engine, right? In car class, we define only one display car, which says car Bugatti. And then the inner class, we define display engine, and that says that, for instance, petrol engine. Does that make sense? In the main method, what we do is we are going to say car, sport car equal to new car. And because we created the object, then we simply say sport car dot display car, which is the outer class. But what if you want to define an object based on the inner class? You need to say car, then go to by saying dot engine, then create something based on that. Do you see the hierarchy? And whenever you want to access the method, you have to say petrol engine, which is the inner class object. Then you just use it that way. In general, we never try to have that in our code, but the thing is, we see, unfortunately, this is not the best practice in some other people's code, so we need to understand what is happening behind the scene. It is that much rare concept that I could just find one video, which is not the greatest, and that shows that how rarely people might use. This is a 10-minute video, so please watch it at your convenience. But the next topic that we want to take care of is anonymous class. What's the meaning of anonymous class? There's no name for it, but what makes a class class? Sorry? We have some members, right? What are the major members that you have in each class? Fields, properties, methods. What if we majorly focus on some fields? Is it possible to just make a bundle of fields and say, I have name, last name, student ID, but I don't just put them under the umbrella of the class student? Is it possible? Yes. Is it recommended? No. But we see once in a while people use that. Because there's no name for such things, we call it anonymous classes. Okay, so anonymous, as some people already said, means that there is no name for them. Everyone, please, this is the overall idea that I told you. Here is the link for you. Imagine that you get nothing from the class, then now read this paragraph. Try to understand what you can understand from it. Here you have the link. Okay, let's quickly go through it together, guys. It says that in C#, an anonymous type is a type or class. So the first thing that I learned from here is type and class can be used interchangeably, right? From each video that you watch, I'm not saying that all of them are correct, right? The good thing is you can see those that they confirm each other. What could be the reliable source for something like .NET, Microsoft publications, and for even that, it's 95% accurate. Why I'm saying that 95% because there were people that I found that they work at Microsoft, but they're not aware of everything in Microsoft. But mostly they are the most reliable sources. So without any name that can contain public read-only properties. Oh, we have a situation here, guys. What's it? Public read-only property. What does it mean by public read-only property? Whenever you have something that has no name, to label it in the portion of the memory, how could you say that, okay, go to that place and change the value inside that drawer? You know what I'm saying? It's going to be confusing over confusion. So the best is just to keep it read-only. Is it appropriate to use no-name classes? Not at all. But because we see here and there, what is the case that you could just be in a position to use such cases? Whenever you want to link your database to an application and you are in rush and you don't want to create a table, create a class to connect it to a table. So you just create the fields on a fly. Look at this example that I have provided for you. This is a classical way of using, guys, I'm gonna give you the code, don't worry. It's not an important code. Just read it for 30 seconds. If you want, run it. So what's it? We have a class called student, and that class has 3 properties: ID, first name, and last name. Does that make sense? And then look at here. I created one student object, and then I passed ID, name, and last name respectively. And then I could just simply say, okay, show me the values. Is it possible that after here, I change my mind and I say the student ID is, I don't know, 100 maybe? Is it possible? Apparently, yes. And if I just say again, show me all those values, what's going to happen? So it's going to be 1 James Bond and then 100 James Bond. Does that make sense? Okay, but the next code, I want you to spend a few seconds, go through it. Done? Okay, can I have your attention, please? Everyone, look at this one. First thing first, we don't have any student class like what we had before, right? Philip, the problem is I don't have any student class. And that is why if you hover the mouse here, it says that I don't know the type. You see that even compiler has confusion. So we create one object, and that object is classless object. We don't have any specific class for it. But look at this one. Whenever you say new, what does it mean? Lovely. It means that we need to assign memory to it. And assign memory to what? To ID, first name and last name. They work kind of like fields or properties, whatever you want to call. Correct? But look at this one. I have an object which has some stuff, and I can just show the values as you see. Till this moment, it's pretty much like before. Look at the problem. What if I change my mind and I say, I want to say ID is equal to 2. I can't do that because it is read only, right? They're not under the umbrella of one class that we expect, that hierarchy that we have. So long story short, avoid this concept as much as you can. Just run this at your end. See if you can relate to the code. You're gonna see it once in a while in some newbies code. So try it for a few seconds. Okay, can I have your attention? We are almost aligned with the time schedule that I had for the class. The only thing is, I'm not going to take your time for going through the slides. We have already covered everything through the examples, but it doesn't mean that I don't need to review the slides. So please, that part is something that you're going to spend 1-2 minutes and read it yourself. The only thing which is different, and I don't know why they put it in this set of slides, is extension. We will work with extensions later. It really deserves to have part of the whole section. Session. And the thing is, extension means, imagine that we work with something like a string. Guys, what do we have for strings? We have something like trim, concatenate, right? Turn it to lower, turn it to upper, these kind of things. But what if you have a sentence that you want to capitalize the very first letter of each word? We call it title case. We don't have that. What if you want to count the number of characters that you have in a string, like 10, 20, whatever? Does that make sense? We don't have it by default as the part of the class. So extension gives us the ability not to destroy, but to add some abilities on top of the current abilities that we have in a class. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to say, forget about a string, I'm going to create my own string class. No, I want to work with string class, but just add some functionalities on top of it. We will work on that later on. But the most important topic in this semester is inheritance. Okay. The question is, what is inheritance? The benefit of inheritance. Guys, why are you laughing? You don't need to do that much and you receive something from someone. And it's exactly what happens inside the code, right? We call it inheritance. Technically, you don't need to create everything from the scratch. That's the idea behind it, right? And then virtual inherited, forget it. We are going to work on each of these guys together. For the first attempt, let's go through this together, and you see that we have 3 different portions for it. And I want you to read the code. I'm going to send it to you, but before I send it to you, I want you to read the code and look at it with criticism. Wear your criticizing glasses. And the only thing that I can say is people who graduate from engineering, especially computer software, you are different from the others because you have analytical mindset compared to many. I'm not saying that that is kind of unique, but I'm telling you that is not public. Always ask this question from yourself. Can I make it better? Does that make sense? And whether you want it or not, guys, this will be part of your characteristics. And if you want to have one gain from all these courses, that would be this lesson. Can I make that thing work better? Okay, so just look at this code, everybody, and see what is not good about it. Okay. So what is wrong with it?
All your classes contain the same.
Yep. Let's just go through it together. As always, we start from the class. We have one class named student that contains ID, first name, last name, and action and study. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go to the next class, employee. Employee again, first name, last name, ID, action. And it has something different, which is work. We say that they work at Centennial, right? For action, they do something at Centennial for both the students and employee, but for this one, they work at Centennial. How about professor? The same, they do something at Centennial and they teach at Centennial. Does that make sense? But we have repetitive things in all of them that we could take and put them in just one entity. What is common in all these entities? Student? No, I'm saying that in general. So what is common between students, employees, and profs? Sorry? Guys, in general, they are all human. Right? That's the common thing, right? So that is why we can have something in general on top of it, which we call it, for instance, person. And person has ID as first name, last name, and action. In that case, look at this code. Look at this code. So here I define a class called person that has first name, last name, and the college ID, right? And we have action, which is common in all of them. Look at the next part. Manav, we have a student that is derived from which class? Person, which is going to get inherited first name, last name, and ID from that class. Also the action from that class. But what is specific about a student? Study. So they study at Centennial, right? How about employee? The same thing, we say that we access to everything that each person has, plus employee works at Centennial. How about professor? The same, they teach at Centennial. Does that make sense? Guys, you have the previous code, right? Okay, your challenge is converted to this code. Done. Awesome, thank you. Send it to me, please, to the private. Manav, Arjun. Andy. Amika. Rishi. Jainam. Garv. Nida. Jordan. Good, Jordan. Felipe. Good job, Felipe. Test is great. Why long? The first to submit. Wailang, you submit right after the things announced. I guess next time you're gonna submit before I announce. So, Santiago, good job. And bravo. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for participating. Kanjan, let me just check. Is there anyone that Kanjan and Irene? Irene, I missed your, sorry. Now I found. Okay, so. Everybody is. Okay, can I have your attention, please? This is actually a solution that you were kind to provide for me. But one question, and that is something that we see in many of software engineering students when they want to design tables. Do you think that it's an appropriate design to say we have person on top and we have student, employee, and professor?
Yeah.
How about this? Can we say professors and teachers, they are employees as well, but it's not the other way around, right? So in that case, the best is to say what? Profs are subsidiaries, are subclasses of the, who is the parent class? Employees. So we have person, and person has two branches, students and employees. Employees have another, which is profs. Does that make sense? This is how we are gonna say we have a person and person has students and employees, and employees as profs as well. Does that make sense? Something like that. Instead of saying that they are all, I'm not saying that it is wrong, but it deserves to say it is more correct instead of having prof in parallel with employee. By saying that, this is another version that I have provided 1.5. I say more accurate version. So professors are derived from employee. So what's wrong? Right? By saying that, Control S, we are ready to get to the next thing. And that is, okay, you know what? The class is over, and then just fabricating, guys. Imagine that the class is, oh, I was like, everybody started smiling. So, and I didn't grab anything from the class. Let's see what we can learn from here. And one approach I want to tell you guys, I always respect whenever you have time, you start this approach that you learn. And I'm one of those people that I can't feel confident unless that I know everything, all the details of the subject. I don't have that self-confidence unless that I can have an overall, understanding. But the thing is, in the case that, guys, it happened to you, especially in colleges and universities, that you need to do something in a short period of time. In that case, there is no time for having that overall vision. You need to have to set a goal. And that goal is, I know that Reza is going to ask those questions in the exam. And just, it's like a partisan approach. Just go and learn that part. Just go and learn that part, YouTube this part, and link them together. And whenever you have time, then when you go to a kind of teach yourself from A to Z, then you're going to understand it thoroughly. Okay. I'm telling you that because next week we are going to have double quiz. And double quiz for those who just want to get the quiz, well, not a big deal. But for those who want to increase their mark for the midterm, if you are not happy with the mark that you get, just know that everything all the way to the end of slide number 20, which I have already shared in everywhere, including the Telegram group, will be part of it. Also, I have provided one quick text file that the videos that you can watch and to get prepared. The questions, guys, do you think that profs, well, actually I have time, but I'm saying in general, do you think that profs have that much time to go through designing everything thoroughly? I'm gonna give midterm question to ChatGPT and say, dear ChatGPT, please add those concepts, hierarchy of the classes inheritance, interfaces, and create something similar to midterm. Done. So you have the questions, add dear ChatGPT, please generate similar questions, including those things, and try to work on them. Does that make sense? And work on them thoroughly, the way that you can explain it to other people. Okay. So by saying that, this is the video that we are gonna enjoy watching. So
all right, what's going on, people? Inheritance. So inheritance is the programming concept of one or more child classes receiving fields, methods, etc. from a common parent. Kind of like how people inherit genes from their parents. Well, with programming, we can kind of do something similar. Parent classes can have children classes, and anything that the parent class has, the child classes now have. So here's an example. Let's create a parent class named vehicle. Not any kind of specific vehicle, just a generic vehicle class. Class, vehicle, and there will be one field, let's say public int speed. And I'll set this equal to maybe 0. And let's create a method, public void go. All vehicles can go somewhere. And all we'll display is this vehicle is moving. We can inherit this speed field and this go method from the vehicle class. So this vehicle class is going to have children. So let's create a car class, a bike class, and a boat class. So type class car, then to inherit from another class, type after the class name colon, and then the parent in which you would like to inherit from. So car is going to be the child class, vehicle will be the parent class. So car will have access to its own speed and go method. And then you can add anything additional within the car class, like number of wheels, public and wheels. And I'll set this to 4 for all car objects. Now let's create a bicycle class. It's the same process as before, class, bicycle. And this will inherit from the vehicle class as well, but let's change wheels to 2. And then let's create a boat class. Class, boat. Inherits from vehicle, wheels, 0 because, well, it's a boat. Okay, so let's instantiate a car, bicycle, and boat object. So let's do that here. Car equals new car. Bicycle, bicycle. Keep on spelling bicycle wrong. Bicycle equals new bicycle. and boat equals new boat. So if we take a look at this car object, car dot, there is a speed field as well as a go method, even though there's nothing within this car class besides wheels. So since car is the child class and vehicle is the parent class, car has access to a go method and a speed field, even though there's nothing within here except a wheels field. And of course, car objects do have a wheels field as well, which we stated within the car class. So let's just test these. I'm going to display car dot speed, followed by car dot wheels. And I will have this car use its go method, car dot go. All right, so our car speed is 0. That's because we set it to be 0 within the vehicle class. This car has 4 wheels, which we stated within the car class. And this car class has a go method that states this vehicle is moving. So I bet the same thing applies to our bicycle and boat object. So let's copy these 3 lines of code, change car to bicycle. Bicycle.speed, bicycle.wheels, and bicycle.go. And the same thing applies to boat. Boat.speed, boat.wheels, boat.go. So all 3 of these different types of vehicles each have a speed field, a wheels field, and a go method. So the point of inheritance is that we can reuse code. I mean, we could just copy these fields and methods and then paste them within each of these classes. But imagine that you have hundreds of different classes and we need to change like go to start. Well, it's a lot easier just to make that change in one place than having to manually go through all of our classes. So yeah, that's kind of the benefit of inheritance. We can keep anything that these classes have in common within a common parent class. And these classes can simply just inherit these fields and methods. So yeah, that's inheritance. If you liked this video, be sure to smash that like button, drop a random comment down below. Well, yeah.
Okay, there's just one thing. It's not just a fancy feature that instead of having a code in 100 places, we can just combine them all in one super class, parent class, base class. We call all those names. They are all just different names for the same concept. It's not just fancy to have everything just concentrated in one place. The thing is, what if tomorrow you decide to add a scene number to students as well as teacher as well as employee? What if you want to add a kind of specific insurance for everybody, like students, staffs, and employees, regardless of the type of engaging at Centennial, they need to benefit from dental insurance. You don't need to go and find every one of them and change the class separately. The other thing is, the other benefit is if you make one mistake or if any update happens, if you just change it in one place, it's going to cascade to all derived class automatically. You don't need to go knock the door, say, hey, do you have this property here? I want to change it. You see that it says the speed is 0. Imagine that we are talking about tax rate. If the tax rate changes to something more or less in future, you don't need to go, and it's going to be very error prone because there's always a chance that in 100 places you change it in 99 places and you forget to update it in just one place. Okay, for all these reasons, object-oriented and inheritance is important. So let's go to the next parts together. And yes, we are going to have a quick break after that. But first thing first, guys, we don't have any muscle memory for today. I'm going to give you this code, which you have already seen. What I want you to do with your friends, is going through the code, quickly explain what is happening in the code. It's what we watched in the video. Yes, sir.
In between practice. So what happens if each branch has another? Thing I can make with remove the branches.
But this is exactly what we are going to talk. Multiple inheritance. We're going to talk about. Okay, guys, let's combine the joy of learning and break together. So now it is 10:29. We are gonna come back and continue. Feel free to stay and talk to your friends about the code at in 10 minutes break. So we are gonna come back at 10:40. Thank you.
फर्क है टू के नाम मस्त टू के मार्क्स एक्सपीरियंस कब तक मिलती आज आज नहीं जा रहे क्लास के बाद जाता हम ये होता है तो आखिरी बैठना तो नहीं ऑफलाइन उसकी ऑफलाइन क्या चीजें भी मेरे लिए तो ये व्यवस्था नहीं करते हैं लैपटॉप से करूँगा ना बजट कुछ ज्यादा नहीं है किसी के पहले हुए नहीं
Hello there.
like to know something whenever you're free. It's not urgent anyways.
Sorry,
I said I would like to discuss something with you whenever you have some time.
after the
Not
class. It's not,
urgent. I said it's not urgent, so anytime.
okay, that's fine. So do you have any class today after this?
There are just one more after this class.
It's gonna be right after this?
No, not right after.
Okay, so we can talk after. Okay.
All right, thank you.
No worries. Okay, we're gonna start in 1 minute. Okay, let's enjoy watching this.
Tutorial, I'm going to talk to you guys about inheritance in C#. Now, inheritance is basically a technique that we can use in C# where we can have one class inherit all of the functionality of another class. So I can define something called a superclass, and then I can actually create classes that are going to inherit all the functionality from that superclass called subclasses. So I'm just going to give you guys a very basic introduction into inheritance. This is a huge subject and there's a lot that you can kind of get into with inheritance. So I just want to show you guys like the basic concept of what's happening with it.
Okay, guys, can I have your attention?
So over here in my program, I created a class. It's called chef.cs. And this is a class that basically like represents a chef in our program. So you can see here class chef. And this chef has 3 methods that it can use. So the first one here is called make chicken. And basically all this does is it prints out the chef makes chicken. Right? So the chef can make chicken. The chef can also make salad. So it says the chef makes salad. And the chef can also make a special dish. So it just says the chef makes barbecue ribs. So this is a pretty cool class. It's obviously a very simple class, but it's it can basically represent a chef in our program. So down here in my program.cs, in my main method, I created a chef object, and it's just called chef. And then I basically just said chef.make chicken. So I'm telling the chef to make some chicken. And when I run my program now, it's going to say the chef makes chicken, right? So hopefully that makes sense. I just have this chef class over here and I defined some methods in there. And then I created an object of the chef class and told it to make chicken. Now, I want to show you guys how we can use inheritance to make another type of class. So let's say that in addition to having just a normal chef like we defined over here, I also wanted to have a more specialized type of chef. So I wanted to represent not only just a general chef in my program, but also a more specialized chef. So let's say I'll come up here, I'm going to say project, add class, and I'm going to create a class called Italian chef. So Italian chef is not just going to be a normal chef. He's going to be an Italian chef. And I'm going to go ahead and create this class. So you'll see over here, we have this class Italian chef. Now, let's say that this Italian chef can do everything that the normal chef could do, right? So this Italian chef is a really awesome chef. And not only can he just cook regular food, but he can also cook like more specifically Italian food. So let's say the Italian chef can do everything that the normal chef can do. So the Italian chef can also make chicken. The Italian chef can also make salad. And the Italian chef can also make a special dish. So the Italian chef is very similar to the normal chef, right? He can do everything that the normal chef can do. He can also do some other stuff as well. One thing I could do to give the Italian chef all of this functionality is I could just copy and I could paste all of these methods over here. Right? And so now the Italian chef is able to make chicken, able to make salad, and able to make a special dish, right? But in C#, there's actually something that we can do in a situation like this. So anytime you have a class like Italian chef, that can do everything and that has all the same functionality and attributes as another class, like this chef class, we can use something called inheritance. And inheritance is basically the process of inheriting all of the functionality, all the attributes, etc., from a class like chef into a class like Italian chef. So what I can do is I can come over here and I can say Italian chef, and I can make a colon, and I can just say chef. And basically what this means is that the Italian chef is going to inherit all the functionality from the chef class. So now the Italian chef can do everything that the chef class can do. And I'm going to come over here and prove that to you guys. So I'm going to create an Italian chef object. So I'm just going to copy this guy and I'm going to paste this down here. And I'm just going to change everything to Italian chef. So I went ahead and changed this to Italian chef. It's called Italian chef. And we said new Italian chef. And now I'm saying Italian chef.make chicken. Now I'm calling the make chicken method on the Italian chef object. But you'll notice over here in the Italian chef class declaration, I don't actually have any methods specified. So I didn't specify like a make chicken method or anything like that. But what you'll see is because I inherited all of the functionality from the chef class, I'm actually still able to make chicken with the Italian chef. So when I run my program, you'll see that it says the chef makes chicken, and this is that normal chef. And then down here, the Italian chef is also able to make chicken because the Italian chef inherited all the functionality from the normal chef. And that's kind of cool. So that's basically what you can do if you have like two classes. And in C# we would refer to chef as the superclass, and we would refer to Italian chef as the subclass.
So you see that superclass, subclass, parent, child, master, slave, base class, driven class. You're laughing at it, but honestly, I didn't joke it. They really call all those strange names, but they're just different namings for the same concept. That's another thing that we can learn from this video specifically.
Always going to be inheriting functionality from this superclass. So that's just a little terminology. Now we can actually take this a step further. So let's say that the Italian chef, in addition to being able to make chicken salad and a special dish, can also do something else. So we could add another method in here. I could say like public void, and we'll just call this like make pasta. So in addition to making all that other stuff, the Italian, so now this chef can also make pasta, and I'm trying to put an open close parentheses there. So if I was to come over here to my program, I could say Italian chef dot make pasta, and the Italian chef is going to be able to make pasta. So this is the normal chef. It's not going to be able to do that. So that's going to throw in. So if I try to make pasta on the normal chef,
whatever you have in the child class, it's not gonna give those things to the parents, right?
Normal. Not going to be able to do that. So that's going to throw in an error. And that's because we only define make pasta in the subclass, not in the superclass. So that's kind of how that's going to work out. And I want to show you guys one more thing we can do. So you'll notice over here in my chef class, I have this method. It's called make special dish, right? And the chef is making a special dish of.
Guys, what is extra things that we see in the definition here? It is not just public void something. It is. Where is it? It's inside the parent class, right? In parent class, whenever you say virtual, it means that it is possible to overwrite it later.
So this chef's special dish is going to be barbecue ribs. But let's say that the Italian chef doesn't want to make barbecue ribs as a special dish. So let's say that the Italian chef's special dish is actually like some other type of dish, and it's not a barbecue dish. Well, the problem is when I come over here and I say make special dish and I say make special dish, both of these chefs are going to be making the same special dish. So when I run the program, they're both making barbecue ribs. But remember, I don't want the Italian chef to make barbecue ribs. I want the Italian chef to make something else as their special dish. Well, in a situation like this, I can do something called overriding a method. Overriding a method basically means that I take one of the methods that I've inherited, like this make special dish method, and I override it. So I basically come over here into this Italian chef class, and I override the functionality of that method. Now, in order to do this, we're going to have to do one thing over here in the chef class, and we're gonna have to include this virtual keyword. So you'll notice I already have this in here. So up here on these two methods, it says public void make chicken, public void make salad. But down here on make special dish, I've given it this special keyword, public virtual void make special dish. And when we specify this as virtual, basically that means that this method can be overridden in any subclasses. So when I say virtual, it basically means that subclasses can change the functionality of this method. So I can just copy this method, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste it down here. And you'll see here I'm saying public virtual void make special dish. But instead of saying virtual here in the subclass, so I'm in my Italian chef class, I'm going to say override. And this is basically telling C# that we're going to override the make special dish method from the superclass. And then down here, I can change it. So I could say the chef makes, instead of barbecue ribs, why don't we say like chicken parm? So now when the Italian chef makes a special dish, it's going to be making chicken parm instead of making barbecue ribs. So let's go over here into our program, and you'll see I'm still printing out chef.make special dish and Italian chef.make special dish. When I run the program, they're printing out different special dishes. So the Italian chef successfully overrode the functionality of one of the methods that it inherited from the superclass.
Okay, let me just ask you a few questions. The good thing about this gentleman is he over-explained one subject several times, and if I don't know anything about the topic, I can know it, thoroughly. But there's one thing that we just saw, override. Override, technically, we have something in the parent class. We want to do something differently in the child class. But is it possible to say, you know what? No, I want the original parent class functionality again. Is it possible to convert it? Yes or no? I don't know. So how about cases that you want to have functionality of child class and parent class? And whenever you change your mind, you could say that, you know what, now get back to original. Now let's use our own domestic child method for it. You can just switch between them. Let's see in future examples. Right now, there's no muscle memory kind of thing. I share the code with you, but look at the things that the gentleman says in the last few. This is something that I wrote for you. Let me just see if anybody else could repeat.
Useful. So those are three very core concepts in inheritance. So the first is just inheriting all the functionality from a superclass. The second is extending that functionality. So for example, in addition to being able to do everything that the normal chef could do, the Italian chef could also make pasta. And then finally, we were able to override one of the functions or one of the methods that we inherited.
So the first thing is inheritance, right? The second thing is extending the functionalities. And the last one is overriding. So I have something, one functionality in the parent class, I want to do it differently in the child class. Okay. So now here is the code for you. So please spend 1-2 minutes. First, run the code. Second, explain it to your neighbors. Arjun, is it working? Okay, done? Done? So if you see, I have changed a little bit. I've changed the code to make it easier to follow. So we have that make chicken and make a special in the chef. And we have make chicken, make pasta, which is not available in the chef, but it is available in Italian chef. And the thing is, the special is overridden by the Italian chef. And you see that it says chicken parma. By saying that, now we get to quickly, guys, this one is something you're gonna enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to this part, where we're going to talk about inheritance and polymorphism in C#. Inheritance in object-oriented programming languages is used to make applications faster and simpler. Because with inheritance, we can build several types based on a single abstraction.
Just one thing. I just want you to get familiar with polymorphism. I don't want you to learn it thoroughly. We have a session dedicated to polymorphism.
Inheritance defines which is the base or the parent class and which is the child one. A child class is a class that inherits from another. Class that other classes inherit from is the base. And in C#, the ultimate base class is the object class. Now, let us go to Visual Studio and learn about inheritance by defining different classes. So, in Visual Studio, I have already created a class named person.cs. And in the person class, I have defined two properties, which are the full name and age, and the method named getDetails. Now, we're going to use this base class to generate other types. It's important that when you choose the base class or the parent class, it is as much inclusive as possible. For example, with person now, we can define a student, we can define a teacher, because even though teacher and student are different types, they all have a common abstraction, which means that they are all persons, and they all have age, full name, and we're going to define the getDetails method as well. So let us go to the Solution Explorer and create two more classes. So for that, we right-click, go to Add, and then Class. Let us name this class student.cs, change the access modifier to be public so we can access it from other classes. And then inherit from person. So this is when the inheritance concept comes into play. So when I say here that the student class will inherit from the person, it means that all the methods and the properties that are within the person class now belong to the student.cs class as well. And let us do the same for another class. So for that, add new class, and name this professor, and press enter. The same way, change the access modifier to be public, and then inherit from the person base class. So in this case, the child class is the professor, and the base class is the person. Now, a child class can always have more properties or more methods than the base class. So for example, for professor, we can define another property. Here we can write string and then subject. We can do the same for the student class. For students, we can define a property which is unique only for students. So for that, we write in here, public, integer, grade. Now we define the get and set. Now let us save all the changes and go to the program.cs class. And in here, let us create three different objects. So let us create a person. And we name this p1 is equal to new person. And we do the same for the other classes as well. So in here now we created three different objects that have now assigned values to all of them. Now here we have defined the properties for all the objects. For the person class, we know that it has two properties, the age and the full name. But we see that we can use the same properties for the professor and student. And the reason why we can do that is because in the professor class, we have inherited from the person class, and in the student class, we have done the same. So now we are inheriting from the person base class, which means that we have access to the properties and the methods. But other than the properties of the person class, we can use the properties that we have defined within these classes as well. So for example, for the professor, we can write subject. And then in here, we can define it to be math. And for the student, we can define the grade, which is of type integer. We can use the same method. So for example, for the person, we can write person.getDetails. We can do the same for the professor because we are inheriting from the person base class. So for that, we write professor.getDetails. And we can do the same for the student. So for that, we write student.getDetails. And if you want to see the result to the screen, simply put the person.getDetails inside the write line method. And do the same for the professor and student. And to see the result on the screen, press the Ctrl F5 buttons. So here we have all the results. But currently, to get the details for each object, we are using the getDetails method in the person.cs class. Suppose you want to use the same method in the child classes, but you just want to change it a little. And this is when polymorphism in C# comes into play. The word polymorphism means having many forms. And in C# is a concept where a method can be defined more than one time. We have two types of polymorphism. We have method overloading and method overriding. Method overloading means creating multiple methods in the class having the same name, but different signatures, so different parameters. Let us create an overload method for the getDetails. A case would be, for example, public string, then getDetails. So we have the same name, but it takes a parameter, double height. Now the response can be the same, it doesn't matter, but what's important is that they have the same name, but different signatures. This is how you can overload a method. Now let us see how we can override a method, which means that we can use exactly the same method in the child class, but by modifying the outcome. To be able to override a method in the base class, first of all, the method needs to be defined as virtual. So for that, we need to write in here public, virtual, and then string getDetails. And then next, go to the base class and write in here public, then override getDetails. Now, you can still choose to run the same method by using the base keyword. Base stands for the person class. But we want to customize it, so for that, we write equals to full name of age, and then we can add the grade property as well. So for that, we write in here, grade is equal to, and then grade. Now we can do the same in the professor class. So for that, go to the professor.cs, paste the same code, and then change the grade to the subject. Save all the changes, and then press Ctrl F5 to see the result. So here we have person. Then we're using the same method. We are displaying the subject for the professor class and the grade for the student one.
Okay. By saying that, I think now we know a little bit about polymorphism, the difference between overloading and overriding. And still, I didn't receive the answer for my questions. I'm not sure if we can find any, but there are 3 more videos. Unfortunately, we do not have time to go through them all, but this one is quite short.
We try to access this A in a class 2, like obj2 is equal class 1 default constructor and then my class 2 default constructor.
This is the last video that we are gonna watch, but the rest of twos we can't. Imagine that we have three classes. The parent class is, I could say the grandparent class is A, then B is derived from A and C derived from B. Okay, is it clear? So whenever you use a constructor, and imagine that we have multiple constructors. We have constructor in grandparent, parent, and child. Which one is going to generate first? Imagine that I create one object from class C. Is it going to generate something within C first, then B, then A? Good guess. Let's see what's gonna happen, okay?
Video of C#.NET, we are going to cover another very important topic of object-oriented programming called inheritance. As we have already started creating multiple classes, somewhere around you will see like different classes are requiring these similar features. For example, we are working in a banking application which offers different types of accounts. So we can create different classes for each account type, but you will notice like obviously they will be having some different features, but obviously they must have some common features as well. So rather than defining those common features again and again in each class, we can define them once in a main class called base class, and then we can inherit that particular class in all the account types. So it will also offer the reusability of code. Now let's see here, like inheritance allows us to define a class in terms of another class. As I just said, one base class shares its member with another class called derived, which allows reusability. The class which is giving its feature called base and the class which is accepting those features are called derived. We can generally, in general language, we can also term them as parent class or child class. Because obviously, inheritance we can see in our real life as well, where we are taking some of the features or functionalities from our parents. So this is nothing but inheritance, and here we are doing the same things programmatically. When a derived class is lacking some feature, only then it will take the feature from its base class. For example, if you are creating a class called A, which already has a feature, some method like M1. So it will not take it from its base class. But if the derived class is lacking something, only then it will go to its base class to get that feature. And here you will notice that between the base and derived, there is a relationship. For example, I create a class called account, which is the base class, and we have some like current account, some account type in which I will inherit the account class. So what can I say? Current account is an account, obviously. All right. So let's implement this inheritance practically and see what all can we do by the inheritance. So in this program, we give a look to the inheritance, and for implementing that, I have created a couple of classes, my class 1 and my class 2, each containing a public method that will be accessible in other classes as well. So now, whichever class you want to make it as a derived class or child class, you can pass a colon operator, and right after that, you can pass the name of the base class, that is the parent class. So now, my class 1 is a parent class while my class 2 is a child class. So as per the rule of inheritance, whenever I will instantiate the derived class, and if I try to access the members, it will provide you the members from its own class as well as from the parent's classes. But a derived class will take only those members from the parent class which are not available in itself. For example, this my class 2 have the method 2, but it does not have method 1. So whenever I try to call this method 1 from the derived class instance, it will have to take it from the base class. But suppose if my class 2, that is derived class, is having its own definition of method 1, it will not take it from the base class. We will see this implementation later on, but let me call the methods using the instance of my class 2, that is obj2. So I call obj2 dot method 1 as well as obj2 dot method 2. So I'm calling both.
So guys, everything is clear so far. We created two different classes. One is derived from the other one. And the derived class can access not only the methods in itself, but also the methods in the parent class.
You can see, like I'm getting the messages from both the methods. So that means here I'm good to use these inheritance concepts. Now, in the access specifiers, we have gone through the concept of public, private, protected. There we have seen the implementation of public, private, and internal, but we haven't seen about the protected. So let's define the protected member here, like protected int A and internal int B. So now, if you will try to access this A in its derived class, you can see like my class 1 got A. I'm good to access this protected member from the base to its derived class. But if I'll try to access the same right here, let's say obj1 dot A, you will not get it. Yes, B is there. Similarly, if you will say obj2 dot A, again, you can't see A right here. So, as I discussed earlier in the access specifiers, protected members will only be accessible inside its derived class and the
Uh-oh. It says that, look at this one, protected. Just to remember, because there's a chance that after finishing this class, you're gonna mix the things and say, okay, which one was protected? Which one was internal, right? Guys, parents, they try to protect their children, right? So remembering that means that any class which is derived from the parent class, you can access the protected members of the parent class. Does that make sense? You can access the protected members of the parent class. But listen to this part. How about internal? Internal talks about the assembly. The assembly should be in the same place. What do you mean by assembly? Guys, when you say internal, internal, external, we talk about a place, right? Just remember it that way. When we say internal, it means that it should be in the same assembly. An assembly is nothing but DDL or executable file that they are generated by compiler in one place. That's what we define assembly. Why I'm saying those things, in a few minutes from now, I'm gonna show you, I have provided a very short, sweet, nice, concise definition of any of them. But I remember I had a struggle to distinguish these guys, which one is inherited, which one, especially if you want to go to an interview. I bet we are gonna mix everything. So we need to, just have those concise definitions. Look at this.
defined. So as we discussed, whenever a derived class is missing something inside, it will take the definition from its parent. That simply means like parent's value should be initialized before anything got initialized in the derived class.
I asked you 2 minutes ago, which constructor is going to get triggered first? C, the child, or the parent, or the grandparent? And listen to this sentence again, you get the answer.
That simply means like parent's value should be initialized before anything got initialized in the derived class. So let's take a scenario where I have created the constructors in each class, that is in base as well as in the derived class. When I will instantiate the my class 2, let me remove this my class 1 because it's a base class and there is nothing fancy is going to happen in that. Okay, so when I instantiate this my class 2, like obj2 is equal to new my class 2. So here I'm invoking the constructor for my class 2. But as I said, like before the derived class, the members of base class should be initialized, because if derived class requires some features from the base class, at that time we have to make sure that base class members has been initialized as well. So let's see in which sequence these constructors are getting executed. So I will execute these now. And here you can see like my class 1 default constructor and then my class 2 default constructor, because this is the base class. So as soon as the control will come on my class 2, let's see it here by pressing F11. So as always, the execution begins from the main method. Here I invoke the constructor of my class 2, and as soon as it reaches here, it will find like my class 2 is derived from my class 1. So you see next control is here in the constructor of my class 1. It will get executed, and after that the control will come back to the constructor of derived class, and then this will be executed, and then finally in main and program terminated. Now let's add a parameterized constructor in both the classes, as I have done here now, and let's call the parameterized constructor of the derived class, and let's see what happens. So as now I have passed the integer, so it will definitely invoke the parameterized constructor of the derived class. But let's see which constructor will be invoked for the base. So here, as you can find, like the default constructor got invoked for the base class, while parameterized constructor got invoked for the derived class. If this is fine for you, it's obviously you can continue with that. But in case if you want to start this particular A with some particular value before getting started with the execution, that simply means you want to invoke the parameterized constructor of the base class as well. So what you can do is you can come here in the parameterized constructor, put a colon symbol, and write the base keyword by passing the parameter of integer type. If you want to pass some specific value, write here. Otherwise, if you want to send the same value, just say B. So whichever you are assigning to B will come to this A as well, and this parameterized constructor of base class will be executed. Let's see in the output. So now this is what we wanted. And now I have added the static constructor in both the classes, that is in the base. Here is the static constructor for the base class, and here is the static constructor for the derived class. So the question is, at what particular sequence the static constructor will behave? So the answer is as soon as
The answer is, guys, the static constructor happens how many times during the application life? You got the answer, right?
derived class, the control will come in this my class 2. And as we have discussed earlier about the static members, this static constructor will be in action. And then the control will go to the base class, and as soon as it will reach in the base class, the static constructor of that class will be executed. So when I will execute that, you can see that the static constructor of the
Okay, look at the example that I have provided here. There is one thing, guys, all these instances that, to the interest of time, I quickly go through this one, and you'll have inheritance in C#. It says that in object-oriented programming, inheritance is another type of relationship between classes. Inheritance is a mechanism of reusing the functionalities of one class into another related classes. Inheritance is referred to as, this is something new that we learned, is a, right? So you can say, for instance, we have vehicle and we have car inherited from vehicle. You can simply say car is a vehicle. Does that make sense? Okay. In the real world example, a customer is a person. In the same way, a student is a person and an employee is also a person, and so on and so forth. This is how we are gonna just show it. In the parent class person, we have first name, last name, and middle name. So employee, student, customer classes, they are all derived from the persons, and they could have their own specific things. The next one, let's see what quickly we can learn from each of them. The next one is from our dear friends, W3 Schools. It is the simplest one. It defines that we have derived class, which we call child as well. We have base class that we call parent as well. And look at the example that they have provided for us, a vehicle and the car, which is derived from vehicle, and they have each their own properties. Actually, here we have just field. Here we have field and the method, which is in the base class. The next one is a little bit more complicated compared to this one. And here it says that imagine that we have one animal class, and if we have different classes, including dog, that each derived from, this is how it's going to show it. So the base and derived. Guys, you're gonna learn pretty similar to this in UML course. Did you have already UML course? Okay. So this one is going to have animal class, which is the base class, and the dog, which is derived from that, and you call it inside the main. The next one, guys, I quickly go through them to just show you. Do you see that is a relationship again repeated here, a paragraph? And this one, I mean, boringly explained all the details. This is something like we already have worked on, but what is the thing that I do not very much like is using var. Guys, whenever you can avoid and just define something like employee, new employee, just use that. Even it went through the possible errors that you can see. And this one has some useful diagrams, similar to the things that you have learned before. The diagram starts from here, right? So one of the things that we say, and you're gonna see in the slides, the transitive feature that we have. If A is the parent of B and B is the parent of C, right? We have that relationship. We could say that C is derived from B and B is derived from A. Am I right? Look at this one, please. Guys, the relationship that we talk is something like this. We have A and B is derived from A. Also, we can say C is derived from B. Means that C can access to all the members of the parent, which is inside B, and B can access to all the members inside A. Is it possible to say in that case, C can access to all the members inside A as well? So in that case, we call it transitive. Okay, so we have that transitive relationship inside there. Let's go to the slides together. So it says that inheritance is a fundamental attribute of object-oriented programming. Define a new class by reusing, extending, or modifying members in an existing class. The new class is the child or derived class. The existing class is a parent based on or superclass. The child class may add new members or replace the inherited members. We already saw that, right? So what we used was override. So it was abstract class that we have. Okay, I'm not gonna confuse you. We have the parent class, right? In that parent class, we had some methods and we decided to override some of them. So what was the keyword that I needed to use in those methods that I want to override? Start with V. Lovely, virtual. So C# and .NET support only. That's the question that I promised to Jordan to answer. Jordan, C# and .NET supports only single inheritance. Means what? Look at this one. In C#, if you have A, you can drive class C from A. But imagine that if we have, just peel it. But if we have B, what is going to happen? It's going to be multiple inheritance, right? What is the problem of multiple inheritance? If there is any problem inside C, you cannot understand if it has come from A or from B. Imagine that I just said A and B. What if I have D, E, F, and so on and so forth? Guys, multiple inheritance has that drawback. Some languages take the risk, Jordan, like Python. They support multiple inheritance. You can have several base classes. Some languages like C#, they do not take that risk. Okay, what if I want to have some features from here and from here and from here? We have something that we are going to learn next week, and it's going to be a part of our double quiz. And it is interface, means that I'm going to have, instead of classes, I'm going to have a list of promises. I have some promises here. I have some promises here, means I do not implement that I have any worry about if there is any error somewhere. I have a list of promises here. I have a list of promises here. I can grab from different interfaces. Does that make sense? So to almost overcome the shortage of not having multiple inheritance, Jordan, we can have interfaces. We are gonna have extensive session and explanation for that. But as you see, we need to get to a point, then I'm able to explain those things. So define a new class by reusing, extending, or modifying members in an existing class. The new class is the child or derived class. The existing class is the parent base or superclass. The child class may add new members or replace the inherited members. Guys, the reason that I read it 2 times, this is one of the most important slides in all the slides that we had reviewed today. If I could just say important, I should. C# and .NET supports only single class. I told you already why. Inheritance is transitive. It's exactly talking about something that we showed here. Means that if B inherits from A and C inherits from B, you can say C is inherited from A. So in that case, you say if A is parent of B and B is parent of C, then A is the parent of C as well. But static constructor, you already know what is a static constructor. Something that only once in the whole lifetime of exactly. It says that initializes the static data of class is invoked before any member is accessed. And instance constructor, you know that we could have several instance constructors and is automatically called when the class is instantiated. If you don't have one, the compiler will create a default one for you. Nota bene, at object creation, the default, this is something that the gentleman explained thoroughly in the video. The default action is that the base class constructor is invoked. That's the first thing. If you don't specify which base constructor to call, it will try to invoke the default one. If that is not available, the compiler in that case is going to raise error. So we are going to see a table and we are going to have lots of examples intentionally that explains all the possibilities in that table. Finalizer comma. It was already explained that we don't have finalizer the way that we had it in older versions of .NET. So it says that it is called by runtime immediately before the object is destroyed. Now we know that garbage collection has no role. It's part of the responsibility of the class by itself to take care of the remainder when you destroy the class. Look at this one. What is inherited? All the members except 3 described, okay? Although all the members are inherited, it might not be directly accessed if it is decorated with the private accessibility keyword. If there is a non-private method, guys, we already know that. What are the access modifiers that we said? We said that the open gate is what? Public. The very close one is what? Private. No, we have very much open, public, very much close, private. If you want to be in the same assembly internally there, what is the name of that? Internal. Guys, I said that about internal, external, the place. If you want to have the things that you inherit from the parent, you call it inherited, right? The thing is, sorry, protected, right? So guys, again, let's just see, we have public, open gate, private, and these two guys, we cannot say which one is. That is why we have protected and just using one word. And we have internal protected using both limitations together. Does that make sense? Look at this in this code. I have provided this for you guys. Everybody, please just try this code. I share it with you in here. Irene, can you please? Irene, can you please? Okay, can I have your attention for a sec, please, everybody? Guys, this is one of the simplest examples because we have it in the class, in the slides. That's why I mentioned it again. So we have a class called A. In that class, I have just one constructor saying that inside class A. And we have B, which is derived from A. And we have C, which is derived from B, right? Guys, look at this one. Here I say, let's create one object based on which class? C, lovely. Which constructor we are gonna see? Only C, right? Only C. Lovely, excellent. And that is why you're gonna see we have the grandparent first, then we have B, and then we have C, right? Okay, let's go to the next part. How about this one? We say, guys, what is new in this slide? The code that I have borrowed from the slide. Look at this one. In the parent, we have a constructor, right? And that constructor is not a default constructor. I don't know how to fix that error, but I want you to find not only the easiest, which is wiping the problem statements. I want you, this is the code for you. Send me the corrected version of that to my private message. Good job. That's the simplest. Arjun, what did you change? Another constructor.
Yeah.
Use another method. That's good, but use another thing too. Good job, Boylong. Neda, can you please send it to my private message? Don't worry. Bravo, Manov. Thank you, Neda. Thank you, Kanjan. Okay, to the interest of time, let's just quickly go through the possibilities together. Good. Let's just consider. Okay, how about this? One of the solution that's not the best, is this one, is to just pass something like saying default or whatever. You simply, guys, look at this. If you just say in here, I have used a constructor which is going to link to the parent's constructor by just using base name. And because there you need to pass a string, you can simply just pass this one as well, right? Does that make sense? Is it possible that I say string, for instance, n, and I just pass n over there? As you see, it is possible as well. Okay. Look at this version, which is a little bit better version. So I define a string. I wish I made it different name, not to get confused. It doesn't need to be the same. Let's say my name, for example. Okay. And let's just try this one. Hopefully, first, let me just make sure that I haven't messed up anything by that simple single change. Here I created a my child class and intentionally look at the result. First, I go to the base class. It says that Reza from the base class. Second, I go to where? To the child class. If I continue, we get to this page that we have 5 different possibilities. But before that, just make sure that nothing is left behind. So here we have a class parent. Do we have any constructor here? So whenever you say that child derived from parent, the default constructor of both are accessible, right? And get triggered. Here we have some public private stuff, and it says that child inherits all the above members. However, child will not be able to access the private members directly. So that is why we need something better that opens the gate if you inherit from parent. And how about this one? It says that when child is instantiated, its constructor will be called, but its parent's constructor that is invoked before that. So it's gonna called first and then. So parent constructor will be called first and then the child class. So we already gone through this example together. And in this one, guys, you know the problem, because in the parent one, we have a constructor, which contains parameter, and you cannot have parameterless or default constructor for the child or children. So one of the solutions, that is the fixation. This is the band-aid solution, just to say base and pass one string into it. a better solution is just using that my name, for example, right? String my name in there. Let's see what this table tells us. If you do not have any constructor in both parent and child or children, no problem. But what if you have a parameter constructor in parent and you don't have any constructor in child? That is the case number 2 or B. None in child and a user-defined constructor in parent. So please bear with me. That is why here in slide 12A, we have no constructor in both. I just wanted to show you that there's no problem. I'm not going to take your time by running that. In A, the other thing is using exactly the same thing, saying default constructor in parent. Guys, it's a default constructor. If you try it or not, I just wanted to say that this works exactly the same as the previous one. So this works exactly like the previous one. Okay. How about B, which has error? This is the time that you define a constructor in parent, but you don't have any in the child, which is going to be solved by doing one thing, convert it to the previous one. This is not the best solution. It is like wiping off the problem statement. And a better solution is passing something like string to the base. And even better is the last one that we created together. Just give me a second to make sure. You're going to have these files by tonight. But how about C? Let's see if C is acceptable or not. User defined in child and none in parent. Absolutely acceptable. In this example, look, in child, we have a parameter constructor, but we do not have any in the parent one. Let's just run this together. I'm going to give it to you. Okay, can I have your attention, guys? These are the things that I expect you do it yourself at your convenience, because if I want to just write all the possibilities, the file would be lengthy and not easy to use for the review purposes. Look at this one. I just added one constructor for the parent, and I just added some asterisks into it a parameterless default constructor. Although we used this constructor, right? Which is parameter constructor. Look at this one here. This parameterless constructor or default constructor would be triggered as well, right? So it's going to be the default constructor of the parent, and then it's going to be these guys too. Does that make sense, everybody? Look at this one, please. The next one is the D, which has error, and I send you the code. Just find the error, please. Oh no, just find it. It says that user defined in child and user defined in parent classes. But what is the problem in here? Excellent. We need to define a default constructor in parents, correct? So let me just, this is one solution, but we have other things to take care of as well. What are the things? Right? If you want to define, if you want to link them to parameter constructor of the parent, you have to use another constructor and link it by saying base, pass it to the parent. That's another one. So let's see the last one. It says that user defined in child and user defined in parent class, and child specifies which base constructor to use. It's exactly this example. First thing first, this is not only describing E. You have it, guys, in the code, so please bring it to your Visual Studio. It is not only explaining E, but also have solution for that problem as well. Done. Okay. So these are all the possibilities that you could see and you could face, but let's go to this one. 14A. Can I have everybody's attention? Do you remember almost 20-25 minutes ago, I asked you one question, and that question was, hey, what if I have a method in parent that I want to override, means killing the parent's method, and create my own definition of method, and nobody can access that? Does that make sense? What if I want to have this opportunity whenever I want, I bring my own definition as a child class? Whenever I prefer to use parent class, I say, okay, just bring that one. Do you see the difference? In the first one, I'm going to override the word is self-descriptive. Override is going to eradicate the parent's possibility. I repeat it, override is going to kill the possibility of using parent's method. But what if I want to have this option to switch between the method in the child or the method in the parent? Look at this one. It says that the virtual keyword gives permission for a child class to replace that member. Methods and properties can be decorated with the virtual modifier. The child class may decorate the same member with new or override depending on the intention of the class. New hides. Look at this one. It says that new hides the member in the base class. So you have the option to switch between. But override replace the member. So now we got it. In the case that you want to eradicate, override. In the case that you want just to hide that parent, you use new. Nota bene, in addition to the virtual keyword, the override and the abstract modifier also allows a child class to implement or re-implement the decorated member. I have explained some extra things, just read it at your convenience, but let's quickly go to this one together. Here we have a parent class and a child class, which is derived from the parent class. Look what we have here. We have a method called hide method, and we have a method hide method. Here, I didn't use virtual. I just set new public void this name. Look at this one. If I say new a parent dot hidden method, which one is going to trigger it? In parent, obvious. What if I say, hey, a child is based on the child class and say a child dot hidden method? What's going to happen here? It's going to show you child. But like saying int typecasting, if you say a parent, a child, what is going to happen? It's going to show the parent. Guys, does it make sense? Jordan? Yes, no, maybe. Look at the example here. It might make more sense if we see this example. So I have a parent, I have a child, which is derived from the parent. If I say public void that, and if I say new public void the same name, see what's going to happen if I call just the child class method. Definitely it's going to show you in child. Look at this example, guys. What is the difference between this one and the previous one? Here I create an object based on the parent class, and then I say parent object dot method. What's going to happen? Parent, which is going to say in parent. How about this one? Example number C. Here I say new a parent dot hidden. What's going to happen? here. What is the difference between this one and the previous one? I didn't create any object the way that in a classic form I put a label for it. I just occupied the memory, but I didn't put any label on it. Does that make sense? Look at the result. It's going to be in parent as well. Look at this one. And this is the most complete version. First, I said, let's have an object based on the child class, and then let's say child class dot hidden method, right? And then I said the child class dot hidden method, but convert it to what? Parent class. Look what's going to happen. You see that we have in child and we have in parent both. Does that make sense? This is the last example, which is the most complete, not last example of the session. I want you please spend a few minutes. Talk to your friend, what is happening there. Yes, it's not possible. Sorry that I closed it. Yeah. Yes, it is not possible to do. It's like parents always give money to children, but not the other way around. Okay. Let's look at this example. Slide number 15 tells us about the virtual keyword. So we use virtual and we use override. And it says replace. It doesn't say hidden. Does that make sense? What we create here is, what is that new B parent? We simply occupy a memory for a new object without having any specific name to it. And then here we say bchild.replace method. And then we say bparent. What's going to happen? I told you that it's not possible to do that, but let's just try this together. Look at the example that I have provided. Here I create one my child object. And if I say, sorry, this is something that I have already covered it, but let me just see if I made any. Okay, what is the problem of this one, guys? Here I should say virtual in that case, right? Because I used override, the parent should be virtual. That's the thing. Did I say that? Okay, what's the problem? And that is the solution. And this example is exactly slide still 14 or 15. Just give me a second, sorry. Because the problem is it's not hidden. I get further. Yes, public override and so on. The correct examples start from this one, which is 15. I'm gonna fix them, don't worry. It's like repetitive. In this one, we have parent, we have child derived from parents. And because we have virtual and override, if you say, show me the parents replace method, what's going to happen? Is it going to, that's the fastest question. Is it possible to run, for instance, this one child method at any case? Never. Guys, always remember, parents, they're going to just give money to children. So you're going to see that it's going to run the parent method, but the next one in here, I create a child. And if I say that replace thing, it's going to say in child. But what if I decorated like typecasting like the last one? Guys, what's going to be the output of this? Is it going to raise error? Because I said change it to parent. Is it going to raise error? So what's going to happen? Why in child? Because we said that virtual override means that eradicate the parent's method. We don't have that one. Does that make sense? You got it? Guys, the last one, please spend 2 minutes. You have the code. And explain what you learned to your friend, please. Okay, can I have your attention for a few seconds? Look at this one. We have already finished, actually the most important concept in object-oriented, which is inheritance. Object-oriented without inheritance is simply a structured programming. So what makes object-oriented is having inheritance, right? Because the concept of the rest has come from old-fashioned form of programming. Next week, we are going to work on aggregation, sealed, and interfaces. That's the answer partially to Jordan's question. So how we are gonna extend the ability of accessing to multiple, not classes, interfaces, right? The thing is, because I want to spend good amount of time for double quiz, something like 2 hours. So we are gonna have dense, very short period of time for learning all these three. That is why I have already provided a file for you. If you just take a look at what I have mentioned here, I said that content to read and watch before the next week. And it's just a set of slides that, set of videos that I have provided here. So for aggregation, what is the difference between aggregation and composition? So the explanation, the videos, and the rest would be the slides. I want you please try to implement. Not all the slides work, as you see, it didn't work. So if you do all those challenges ahead of time, and again, my suggestion, just combine what it's meant to be in your double quiz exam, which is going to be interface, inheritance, especially inheritance. Ask ChatGPT. You have already 6 different types of midterm exam. What if you want to combine inheritance? For instance, you might say, guys, how many of you had pizza? Not in your life, in the midterm pizza exam. How about you had pizza? Okay, so how many of you had student? It was not in this class. Okay, imagine student, awesome. How many of you imagine that you had employee or order kind of things? Okay, in that case, you could say, what if I have, for instance, order and order details or product or one specific type of product? If I have pizza, what if I have the food as the super class? And then I have pizzas as the subsidiaries and so on and so forth. So technically, the properties that you needed to define in your midterm exam now should be classified in different classes. You know what I'm saying? So just try to work on such examples. For those friends that they already have good mark, it's gonna be 2 quizzes, right? And if I see that the implementation is awesome, flawless, I'm gonna consider bonus marks aside from the quizzes for you guys. And for those who want to leverage that's the best point for the best time for us to not only review the concept, but also get the best possible result. And I had that limitation that I said, what is the weight of midterm? 25%. And I said that you can get 20% maximum if you did a good job, right? You remember that? I break that limit, you can get 25. So now you have all the needed motivations. Break the leg and good luck. That's for today. Have a wonderful one. Thanks.